Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. And today, I make no apology, this is going to be something of a philosophical conversation we have because it is in response to a question from a viewer who's asked me to do this. And don't forget, if you have a question for me, just drop it in. Email address is on the screen. If you ask me a question, you will benefit from my avuncular advice, all right? My life journey, 55 years in the making, served in the military, served in law enforcement, been a father, been a husband, all that sort of thing. I'm happy to give you my advice. And the question today comes from Daniel. And it's quite a simple question, but it's not quite a simple answer, I gotta say. The question is, hi Ash, if it's not too intrusive, what are the top 3 disappointments in your life which in hindsight have built your character? Now, I'm actually not a person who harbours on the past too much. I like to let things go and move forward. But Daniel's question, right, made me truly think about this, about how I am able to leave disappointment behind and move forward. And I'm going to give you some reasons why it's valuable not to hold on to the past and let it hold you back, and how we can live with some contentment, even though we might have made some mistakes. Because when I say we might have, I don't know a man on this planet who hasn't made some form of mistake in his life. Be that, we all feel the sting of disappointment when it comes to a failed career move. You might have started a business and it has gone belly up and it's, affected your confidence when it comes to future endeavours within commerce. Relationships. I mean, as a 55-year-old guy, I've only been married the once, still happily married, by the way, but I know I'm very much in the minority. I've been to the weddings of friends now who are on their 3rd wedding, and they are the same age as me. They've had the same throw of the dice in this life as me, but those relationships, it didn't pan out for them. And they've felt that sting of disappointment, of what could have been. What have I left behind? And that comes to us all. And we all find experiences like that. But the problem is, and I know this happens so many times, if you hang on to the ghosts of the past, it will affect the things that will happen to you in the future. Because you're always looking back and you're thinking to yourself, oof, is that going to happen again? And, yes, we can all ruminate over missed opportunities and things that have passed us by. If only I bought shares in Apple or Google, when I started out in life, I'd be a millionaire. Yeah, we can all say that, can't we? But it doesn't happen. But we've got to let that go. So today, I am going to give you some advice which will help you to remember that your past does not define you. It doesn't affect what's going to happen tomorrow. It's gone. Right? Can't go back in time. We can't change it. So why waste time thinking about it? First of all, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why doing so. Why thinking about the past can be the thing which holds you back from having a successful future. And the first thing I would say is thinking about those ghosts of yesteryear, well, they are going to skew your perspective of the present, of the right now. Because I kind of alluded to it already. I know if you make a big mistake, a balls up in life, right? You threw the dice, you gambled. Maybe it's in business, maybe it's in marriage, maybe it's in some other element of your life. You've moved to another country and it didn't work out. And you've ended up going back or, having to start all over again. That experience can flavour the rest of your life if you choose to allow it to do so. Because you might say to yourself, well, I'm not going to do anything like that again because it's just going to end up like that. And if you allow it to do so, past experiences very much have the ability to flavour your future endeavours in life. You've got to be very careful not to move into that field of allowing life to warp us. And I'm going to give you some solid, robust research here to underpin that. Let me tell you this. Psychology research from none other than Stanford University shows that by ruminating on negative experiences, it increases stress and lowers your problem-solving ability by 30%. So basically, you're not seeing new opportunities for what they truly are. New opportunities. You're just looking back thinking it's just going to be a failure again. You're a third less likely to get success in the future if you linger on the past. Let that sink in. And that really spills into my next point, which is worrying about the things, the disappointments and the failures you've had in the past. It really does limit growth into the future, because disappointment breeds fear. And if you have had a bad experience, you're going to be fearful of repeating it over again, like I've just said. And men who fixate on the past are far, far less likely to be successful in the future. Another bit of research just to underpin this for you, right? It's not just me saying these things. It is august bodies of learning which prove it. So let me tell you, a study published by the Journal of Behavioral Decision Making found that individuals with a strong focus on the past and worrying about regrets were 40% less likely to pursue new challenges than those who treated their mistakes in the past as lessons and saw the future as an open page to step into and make a new mark, rather than thinking the same thing is going to repeat itself. So worrying about that past, letting those disappointments drag you down, all it really does is prevents you again from having success in the future. And my final reason why I think it's really important, right, to think about how disappointment of the past can damage your future is that it erodes your contentment in the here and now. Because if you allow it to do so, all right, you might have, something terrible might have happened. You might have had a bad turn in work. You know, didn't get the promotion you wanted, but you stuck away at it. You plugged away, and you got there in the end. Right? You've got your promotion. You've got your corner office. You know, your good company car, but it came somewhat later than you were hoping initially. You, rather than enjoying that success here and now, right, just being happy you got there in the end. I know many people who will be thinking to themselves, I should have got you 10 years ago. I should have had these trappings of my success, the product of my hard work, a long time ago. And it stops them enjoying it right here and right now. You know, you can't change what happened, but it's affecting your happiness now. And also, it's the other thing, like, if I got my success earlier on, where would I be now? Instead of being, you know, just a department manager, I could have been the chief exec. And there's always one step higher than you that you think you could have been if you just had that success in the past. You didn't have that disappointment. And over time, these disappointments, if left unchecked and they allowed to fester in your mind, they can erode your contentedness right now. And let's be honest, it's the right now that matters, because the past we can't change and the future is yet to come. So the right now is what we have all actually got, and we need to try and get that contentedness now. Now, my first step, and these are ones which I employ in my life, because let me be blunt and frank and candid with you. I have totally ballsed up elements of my life, right, in the past. I've made career mistakes, and I'll tell you about my biggest disappointment at the end. I don't have three for you, but I'll tell you about one mistake which I think I made, and it has affected my enjoyment of life, but I'll tell you that at the end. But the three ways that I get through life without allowing the rumination on the past to affect my contentedness now are these. The first one is I reframe my past as learning, right? Yes, I've made mistakes. I've done things wrong, but I don't let it drag me down. I look at my errors as opportunities to stretch myself and improve. I learn from the errors that I've made, and I treat it as a lesson. Now, how you do that is individual to everybody. I'm a big fan of journaling, right? So I will write down things that have happened in my past life, and I will think, you know, oh, I've made a big mistake here today. Could have done that better. I'm not going to do that again. I write it down. I analyze where I went wrong, what I could have done better, so that when it happens next time, I'm ready for it. I've planned for it. And when that unfolds in front of me, I know exactly what to do. I'm not going to do the same as I did last time, because that didn't work. So I think people who are able to reframe their disappointments as learning opportunities for the future have much more chance of not worrying about the past and actually making the future a success for them. Now, the next way in which you can reframe your disappointments from the past and turn them into experiences which flavour your future positively is to build in acts of gratitude to each day. Because I'll be honest, right? If you sit at your desk or you sit at home and all you can do is think over maybe the disappointments of the past and how, if the dice had landed differently when you were in an earlier phase of your life, how you could be living in a bigger house, have a better car, have nicer holidays, had a happy marriage, right? It's going to tear you apart. It's going to break you up from the inside out. So what I tend to do, and this actually follows on from something which I do with pen and paper, at the end of each day in my journal, I will write down one thing which I'm grateful for, which happened today. And that allows me to focus on something of positivity from that day. And if I look back at my journal, each day for me is marked out by a positive thing, rather than thinking, oh God, I could have done that better. And I'll give you some research again, which underpins why this is a good idea. University of California research shows that men who write down 3 things they're grateful for each evening reported a 25% increase in life satisfaction over a 10-week period. And the reason why that works is that thinking about your gratitude for the day shifts your focus away from what went wrong to what actually went well and what you can replicate again tomorrow. So you pay the gratitude forwards. You're not just thinking about negativity, you're thinking about the positivity. It's not hard to do. So even when something terrible has happened in your day, make sure you also record the thing which brought a smile to your face, which was good. And that's the lingering memory, not the disappointment. Now, my final area of how you can shake off these disappointments is one which you're not going to be surprised to hear, because it is about the way that you attire yourself. And really and truly, dress the part of the person that you want to be in life. Do not be defined by the things that have shaped you from the past. Now, if you put nice clothing on, this is the old classic science of enclothed cognition. If you dress in a way that you want to present yourself to the world, content, happy, and confident in life, put those clothes on that make you feel like that, you will act like that. You will not be dragged down by disappointments of the past because you're too busy being the man that you want to be in the here and now. Simple things like putting on a nice jacket, wearing a collar and tie, polishing your shoes, it has fundamental impact on the way that you carry yourself, the way you interact with other people, and the way that you feel about yourself internally. Because wearing sackcloth and ashes, the old way of describing mourning or tragedy, right? You dress like that, you're going to feel like that. You dress sharp and intentional, and you're going to feel like that. And those disappointments of the past, they're in the past, right? They're back there. Nothing to do with me now, nothing to do with tomorrow. Dress with intention, and you will feel intentional about the life that you're leading. Okay, now, as I promised, I'm going to tell you about just one disappointment of my life where I think I might have made an error of judgment at the time, and I still think about that and what might have been if I hadn't made that decision. I'm going to take you back to 1997, right? So at this point, I'd spent 10 years in the armed forces, the Royal Air Force, in fact. I'd had a wonderful decade of military service. I loved being in the uniform of my country, striving towards a common purpose by amazing men and women, brothers and sisters, who did the same job as me, served the same master as me, and their purpose in life was to provide protection and betterment to our countrymen. And I decided that the military was downsizing. Cold War had come to an end, and I thought, I haven't got much of a career left here. The military is getting much, much smaller. I'm going to move on. And I ended up joining law enforcement, and I spent 23 years in law enforcement. Had a career, good career. But I always think back, what if I'd stayed in the armed forces? Whilst the law enforcement was a good job, it tested and challenged me as a human being and probably brought me to some of my heights as a person. But I didn't really enjoy it. You know, working in a profession where every day is somebody else's tragedy is not very enjoyable. Yes, it tests your character, but actually it's a bit dreary, you know, when every day is death and horrible things. And I often think to myself, if I'd stayed in the armed forces, where would I have travelled around the world? What people would I have met? What challenges would I have faced in that job? How high would I have gone in my career? I like, of course, to think I'd have been successful and had a wonderful time travelling the world, serving my country. But I will never know, because the dice landed differently for me on the table. So I don't let it bring me down. I occasionally reminisce and think about, what could have been. Look at old photos of myself in a uniform thinking, those were the halcyon days of your life. How long could you have kept that going? But actually I know it's pointless thinking like that, because the life I've had, and I'm happy where I am now. But I know what you mean. Disappointment can hold you back. I think really what you have to remember is that a man cannot rewrite his past, or neither should he be shackled by it. He should learn from it, and it should take him forwards. And that's the best lesson that I can provide for you today, Daniel. I hope I have answered your question adequately. And if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe for more like this. And don't forget, ask me those questions, drop them in. I'd love to get your emails. I'll make a video in response if I can. And you can join me on my journey to Chap Nirvana by becoming one of my patrons. In the description box below this video, you will find a link to my Patreon pages where you can see more of my life and, of course, enjoy the exclusive content which I make purely for my patrons each and every week. And in fact, some of the tiers to my Patreon membership are free, so you do not even have to pay for all of that. Come and join me. I'd love to have you. Until the next time we meet, forget the disappointments, look to the future, and I'll see you soon.